like to introduce Art Fuller. Art has talked a number of times. I see a few new faces, but most of you know Art. Appreciative that Art could share his wealth of knowledge and experience with us today. So Art, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Gary. Whoa, what the heck? Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay.
And we can see your screen.
Okay, good. Okay, today's topic is going to be extending the growing season. You look outside right now, what the heck are we going to be extending? It looks like it's another beautiful day in Washington. But boy, oh boy, I'll tell you what, the weather changes so quick around here. All right, okay, the only way to prevent is to protect. Protection from continuous rain and cold can extend the garden life immensely throughout Washington, or especially Western Washington. A little bit of rain will cause, if you look at the tomato picture, we get any amounts of rain, you see that split seam right down the tomato. That'll cause your tomatoes to split, and it doesn't take very much rain to cause that to happen. So you want to keep them covered if you can. Topics that we're going to cover today. Damages just briefly caused by rain and frost. The rainfall graph. Frost days in Longview. Microclimates. Ways to extend the growing season. Setting up and types of row covers, garden fabric, and then finally types of season extenders. Prolonged rains they can drown out your garden if you don't have good drainage. Saturate the soil so badly that you can end up with blossom end rot or just any kind of diseases on your fruit and your leaf. Believe it or not, this was Centralia and Chehalis back during the rainy season. I think it was back in 2007 when this flooding occurred. And there was multiple causes of this flooding, but it was the bad rains we had, and some of the structures gave in and caused the flooding to come down through. 2007, yes. Okay, good. These are Alice's favorite. Alice likes these a lot, so she encourages slugs. And
Lies. He lies.
And then the disease you get from all the rain, because the leaf does not dry out, the winds don't dry them out, and it causes leaf disease on your plants. On the other end of the spectrum, frost can do damage too. If you look, there's cucumbers here with frost damage, and right below what a cucumber looks like after it's had frost damage. And on the right, you'll see tomatoes, what happens when they get frost damage, and then the lower is the fruit, what it looks like with frost damage. As you can see during the Longview rainfall, that there's a nice dip in here. Usually May through September is very, very minimal rain, but then January through April it picks up, and October through December it picks up. So we're coming into those rainy months. The frost dates that are important to remember: 23rd October is it's just a prediction, and 9th of May should be about your last frost day, and that is also a prediction. There's a lot of factors that will change that, and that could be microclimates, your plants that are planted next to a wall, a hill. Altitude is a big factor. And if you got trees blocking everything, that's another thing that'll protect your gardens. And these are the predictions again. It tells you a 10% chance of frost on the 23rd of October, and then it gives you percentages as the days go on through the months. Location is very important when you're growing your gardens. Microclimates caused by walls, buildings, trees, hills, etc. all play into the climate of your garden. And believe it or not, it varies from yard to yard. Our yard up here, my garden sits right in the middle with no blockage. I get sun all day long. I very seldom get a frost because of the hills around me and the trees around me. However, the neighbor down below is in a wide open field and he can have frost damage early. So you want to choose the warmest location for your garden. Don't plant in a spot that is prone to early frost. Areas that get as much sun as possible is the best, especially during the autumn and the winter. And you want to make sure they're easily accessible. There's all different types of ways to extend the growing season. Row covers and garden cloths, the use of cloches and low tunnels where you put the row covers and garden cloths over, high tunnels, greenhouses, cold frames, and hot boxes. I haven't seen too many hot boxes around here, but I know back in Pennsylvania there was a lot of them. They worked well back there. Most row covers or garden fabric do better with a frame. So if you want to make a frame for this, the easiest way I've seen is you can use a wire. This wire is a 9 gauge. You can cut it to length, usually about, the wire itself is 1/8 inch in diameter. 76 inches covers a 3 to 4 foot bed. You space them 2 to 4 feet apart. The top picture up above, somebody has used PVC piping and has made an arc around it. And they usually put that PVC, they put rebar down in the ground here, and they'll slide the PVC over it. So that'll give it some support to make this arc. There's also ways to make a strap, and you can bolt this thing to the outside or screw it to the outside of your raised beds. And this strap will just go right over top of the PVC and you screw it into the side of your bed. And that'll also maintain your arc. The one thing you got to remember is when you're using row covers to prevent frost damage, you want to make sure the fabric doesn't touch the plant. Because that frost, when it touches the plant, it'll go right through the row cover and it'll freeze. It'll cause frost damage to your plant. There's also many types of commercial frames out there you can buy. Something to secure the fabric with. The biggest problem in here is the winds. We have a lot of wind where I'm at. So if I don't want this fabric being blown all over the county, I want to make sure I fasten it down. So you can use stakes, you can use hooks, you can use clips, whatever you want to do to fasten this hardware or this cloth to your support frame. A lot of people will just drape this cloth over top of the PVC pipe or the wire. Then the little bit that's left over, that's hanging down or left over on the ground, they'll put a brick on top of it or a 2x4. And that works just as well. Some even use plants or sandbags or anything else that is available to put on there. But this one here looks like they have a 2x4 down on the ground, and it's over top of the row cover. And then they have the sand on top of it, sandbags or dirt bags or gravel bags, whatever they want to be, and that keeps it from blowing around. And it makes it kind of easy to access too. All you have to do is remove the bag, remove the 2x4, and then open up the end and you can get into it. Next, we're going to cover the different types of row cover or garden cloth. The frost blanket is one of the more spendy type, but it protects your crops from 24 to 26 degrees Fahrenheit. It only allows 50% of light penetration, and the weight is about 1.5 ounce per square yard. I did some research on this and found out different prices. Territorial Seeds is 6 foot by 20 at $24.95. You can go on Amazon, 6 foot by 50, $29.11. And then A.M. Leonard, which is a garden distributor, and they distribute to the public, 12 foot by 250 feet is $140. So there's a variety out there. It's easy to find, and it's easy to get a hold of. Next type is a remay. It's a little bit lighter. So moderate protection down to 30 degrees Fahrenheit. However, light transmission through this is 75 to 85%. So your plants get a lot more light. And there's the prices there for Territorial Seed and Amazon. I couldn't find remay at A.M. Leonard. Another type of row cover is called Grow Guard, and this is basically used for germination and insect protection. It's similar to remay. It's a little bit lighter, a little bit gentler on tender plants. 85% light transmission. Protects to 27 degrees with no wind. And there's the prices there listed on Territorial, Amazon, and A.M. Leonard. And then there's an insect barrier that you can use, and this is 90% to 93% light transmission. It doesn't do very much for frost, so I didn't put it down as listed as a frost protection, but the three prices from Territorial, Amazon, and A.M. Leonard. And I'm sure there are more out there than those three, but those were the three quickest I could find. And the last type I looked up was called Growtherm. And this is used quite a bit around here, especially up in Lewis County. And what it does, it's like a mini greenhouse, and it has perforated plastic. So there's holes in there. And this is great for warmth-loving crops like melons and sweet potatoes. We have a lady up here that's all she does is grow melons, and she does this for a living. And all she does is use this Growtherm. She covers all of her vines, and she makes thousands of dollars every year just by growing melons. And that's her livelihood to supplement her Social Security every year.
Hey, Art, would that be a good thing to grow peppers in? You know how peppers are funny around here. They just don't grow well most of the time.
I imagine it wouldn't do any harm. I think it'd do it great because the peppers are warm-loving plants. I found out years ago when I started growing peppers, I tried to plant some in my garden, and I kept some in the greenhouse. Well, my garden ones don't do so well because of the temperature changes and the cold nights. If I left them potted in my greenhouse, they produce great. I get so many different types of peppers. I don't have any problem with them at all. And yes, putting this plastic over top of them would do wonders. You just got to remember a pepper plant grows pretty big. This Growtherm is mainly for a viney type plant. My pepper plants would come up through the top of this thing. But it would definitely work.
Thank you.
Sure. And this is one of the kits I saw out there. This thing runs just about $60 to $70 just for this little bit of plastic. So you want to make sure when you're buying these things, you check your budget out before you go purchasing. I myself wouldn't purchase something like this. I would try to redo or reuse or repurpose something that I have laying around. And there's all kinds of ways to do it. Types of season extenders, cloches and low tunnels. They're basically about the same thing. A cloche we'll discuss here in the next slide, I think it is. But there's lots of options depending on your needs. You can make them as big as you want and as fancy as you want. Most are about 12 to 18 inches tall and about 2 to 3 feet wide. And all they do is just, you can put them right over top of a raised bed and that'll protect your crop. Now, if you're having a tomato issue and you're trying to get your tomatoes to extend their season out, you want to raise these beds up a little higher because most tomatoes are usually about, well, some are about 4 to 5 feet tall. So you're going to basically have to make this arc and this tunnel a little higher to get the plant inside it. Cloches and low tunnels. As you can see, a cloche is a small translucent dome-shaped cover for protecting or forcing outdoor plants. The original was a bell-shaped or a glass dome, but that definition has changed. So up above you can see the original is a bell-shaped dome. But look at this, the next one over is a 5-gallon water bottle. They just cut the bottom out of it and voila, you got a cover. And here's another cloche or a low tunnel off to the right. And some have used the corrugated sheeting. And some get pretty fancy. So the design is all up to you, how you want to make it. The difference between a high tunnel, a low tunnel, and a greenhouse is a high tunnel are unheated, plastic-covered structures, and they can be walked through or driven through. But there's some samples and some ideas on how to do a high tunnel. A greenhouse is a structure with walls and a roof made chiefly of transparent material. This transparent material can be a lot of things. It can be glass, plastic, the transparent type sheeting. You can do all kinds of things to make greenhouses. People use windows, old windows, sliding doors, the corrugated plastic. You name it, as long as it's transparent, you can use it. Here's some different designs. Some are fancy, some are not. Here's one that's the one to the right by itself. That's a poured fiberglass greenhouse. They last pretty long. I got a friend that has about 3 or 4 of them on their property, and they love them. I was kind of cheap. This is my greenhouse that I designed and made. I got the greenhouse at Harbor Freight, $450 for the greenhouse. I bought it in 2014. I planned it for a year before I got it set up. I decided I put a footer down on the outside perimeter. I ran a water line through the center of it. I ran an electric piping, conduit piping inside so I could run electrical cable if I need it. I put benches on the inside of it. I've got racks, 2 sets of racks on each side and a workbench in the back. I put gravel down. Well, first of all, I put a cloth down so I didn't get any weeds up through it. A heavy duty cloth. I used the kind they used on the roads. And then I used drain rock, and then I put the 5/8 minus over top of that. But that's the price of everything I used and how much it cost me. And it works out. I've had this thing since 2015 set up, and it works great. More types of seasonal extenders, cold frames. Cold frames can be made out of a lot of things. You have straw bales right here, and then somebody got innovative and just put some glass windows over top of it. That's a kind of cheap way to do it. Everything's repurposed and reused. Here's one right next to it. It's out of corrugated sheeting. And then this one here is out of some sort of, it's either glass or plexiglass. Plexiglass gets kind of expensive. And then this one down the very bottom on the right-hand side, that's just made out of pop bottles. And they just run studs down there and ran the pop bottle through it, and it works great. That was done at the Master Recyclers up in Lewis County. They use that quite a bit. They use it on display up here a lot. The hot box, that's a little bit different than everything else. It's just basically a cold frame sitting on top of a heat source. So what you do is you can have manure down on the bottom of it, put the cold frame over top of it. The manure heat will transfer up through the earth and then heat the cold frame up. Some use heating cables, cover it up with sand, and that'll transfer the heat right up through it also. I've seen actually people use hot water. That gets kind of that gets expensive to try to do that because you have to have a way to heat that water up and get it through the system to keep the bed hot. But the heating coil is usually a generally used. And the last is the wall of water. I found this online. It was kind of interesting. It's water tubes you put around your plants. As you can see, you fill these things up with water, and the heat from the sun heats these up, protects the plants from wind, and it stays warm all night long. Protects plants down to 16 degrees Fahrenheit. And they're reusable. You just drain them out and save them again for the next year. So in summary, we talked about damages caused by rain and frost. Showed you the long view graph, rain graph, and frost days. What is meant by basically a microclimate, ways to extend the growing season, types of, and setting up row covers, garden fabric, types of row covers and garden fabric, and then types of season extenders. Are there any questions?
What kind of row cover fabric works best in this area, or does it matter?
It depends on what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, if I'm with starts in the spring, would they work for starts?
Yes, you want to use the there's a germination row cover.
Okay.
That, a real light. Let me go back here. It's okay. This is called Grow Guard.
Grow Guard.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's 6 ounce.
Okay.
It runs about territorial at $16.95, Amazon $14.71 for 25. And then you can get it at AM Leonard for a 6 foot by 250 for, I have a lifetime of that there for you. But it's just a lighter. It allows 85% transmission, and it protects down to 27 degrees with no wind. And that's what a lot of people use, just to cover up your plants in the summer.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Question?
Sure, go ahead.
You can hear me.
I can.
Amazing. Okay, a couple of things. On the cold frame, the one that you did with the straw, I have a bunch of sliding glass doors that I've saved over the years for that kind of thing. But You really have to monitor those closely because of the heat. I guess I'll put that in the form of a question. How often would I have to run out there and crack the lid, or would the hay do adequate filtering?
Well,
Go
the
ahead.
best thing I can say on that is you want to put a thermometer inside that thing so you could read it. My cold frame, I had a thermometer inside and a thermometer outside.
Yeah.
And I used to be able to monitor my inside my cold frame. When it got too hot, you have to open them up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So
smart.
sliding glass doors would be kind of heavy. If you
It's
look
very heavy.
here, they put the very first window is a sliding window, and you can open that thing up. So they just lay them on top, and you can open these windows up and get air in there.
Yeah.
But
And I have one of those Oregon Scientific type that I could put a clock sensor. You know, I could put a sensor out there right in it. That's smart. I don't know if it'll alarm.
Yeah. You
Another question. Go ahead. Go ahead. What?
You got to make sure you don't burn your plant up because
Oh yeah, and that happens so fast.
it does.
I think it's smart just to leave it cracked all the time, and then you know, unless it's below zero or something.
Yes.
Those
Yeah,
pop bottle.
When you're extending the seasons, a lot of people use these cold frames for the winter months where it is hot. So what it's going to usually do is just bring it up about 10 degrees inside this thing.
Yeah.
Some a little higher, but I don't recommend using the cold frame in the middle of summer.
No, you can grow spinach and those greens all winter long in something like that.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. So on the pop bottle thing, then they've got those pop bottles filled with water, right?
No, they do not.
The air is in.
It's just an air brake. So they stack them. They actually just slide them onto the pole, and then they screw the pole to the framework. And it's an empty bottle, and it'll increase your temperature inside there probably about 10 degrees.
Okay.
It's kind of neat how it works, and depending on how close you put it, you know, how tight it is, how little air circulation you get, but you still have air circulation in there because you can't seal it off completely. But it's different. I'll say that.
I would think if you had channels and put filled bottles, that it'd be like a heat sink. What do you think of that?
Well, you could, except for you'd have to have a way to stack the bottles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Art. I used bubble wrap, the big bubble wrap, not the skinny little bubble wrap you get from from Amazon, but this was a bigger bubble wrap that I had a giant whatever came in the mail. And I'll tell you, with that double channel there with the air between it, that really worked well. It was kind of like what your pop bottles are doing there with that air barrier. That worked really well.
Actually, the bubble wrap would probably work even better because you'd have less air circulation.
Less cold air inside.
That would be like a little miniature greenhouse, actually.
It was great. It worked really well.
Bubble wrap, anything that's transparent works great for this stuff.
One more question.
I have a question also.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Who's going to talk? Steve Hart here. Hey, I'm looking for a few slides back. You had a picture of a type of cloche that looked like a little suitcase with a handle thing on it.
There it is.
Yeah, there. Any ideas where you might find such a device? Buy it at sources?
I saw it on Amazon.
Okay. All right. Hey, that's good. Yeah. Okay. It looks like it's kind of a rigid plastic. It's not made of screened material. I see there's a little vent in the end.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a little miniature greenhouse. You got a little vent in there?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. We'll go to Amazon and do some research. Thank you very much.
Oh, no worries. Go ahead, Jackie. What was your other question?
On your hoops over your long bag, PVC. I've used PVC before to make hoops and bought these clamps to put on it.
Yep.
And I found them very expensive. I tried to make my own and it kept the plastic, or it was greenhouse fabric. And then I just read something about taking a large hose and cutting sections, and that you could make a clamp that fits over the PVC to hold the covering, the plastic. It's not plastic, but you know what I mean.
Yes, the cloth.
Yeah.
You can also, if you get the right diameter, you got this PVC pipe. I don't know if you can see my pointer going over top of it. No, you can't see my pointer. But the PVC,
Yeah, I can.
okay, the PVC pipe itself.
Yeah.
And then what you can do is you could, say this is 3/4 inch. If you go and buy a 1-inch PVC pipe, just a 3-foot section, and cut it in small segments like a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch, and then cut a little slot in it, you can put it and break it or bend it open, and it'll slide right over top and hold your cloth down also.
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah, and that works. That's about the cheapest way I can tell you how to get it. I've seen people use clothespins.
Yes, they don't work.
No, well, I'd go one step further and buy the little clamps. There's plastic clamps you can get at Harbor Freight. You can get a whole bucket of them and just put them right on.
I've got some old hoses here that I've mowed over, and I'm thinking I'm going to try and see if I can jerry rig up something, see if it works.
Yeah, as long as you put a slot in there and slide it over, it should work fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Other questions?
Comment. Hey, Art, I have a comment about the rigid cold frames. There's such a thing as a solar hinge. I used it on the East Coast. And if you attach it, and it can help prevent you cooking your plants. At a certain temperature, it will open the cold frame enough to allow air in there.
Yes. Hang on, I'm going back. See if I can. Okay, if you look at my greenhouse here, if you look at the very top of it, you see 4 vents up on the top of it.
Mm-hmm.
Those?
Yep.
Those are hydraulically open vents on my greenhouse. I purchased the vents at the openers at Harbor Freight. I took them in. They were, I think they're about $16 to $18, but I got a half price sale on them. And they got beeswax in them.
Yep.
And they open it up by the beeswax, creates a hydraulic pressure and opens up my vents when it gets too warm in there. But there's all kinds of automatic openers for your covers and stuff like that work great.
Beeswax, great idea. The one I had operated by like a little spring, like a thermostat, and at a certain temperature, it would open the vent. But the beeswax seems reasonably priced. You could modify that for cold frames.
Yes, you can. And it's very stable. The beeswax is very stable.
So the Solar Gem company, that's what they use. I have a little Solar Gem out here, and it's got that beeswax thing, and it opens it at a certain temperature and closes it, and it's been going for 7-8 years, no problem. They sell them on there, and they're not like $30 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And mine have been going 5 years now, and that's saved many plants inside my greenhouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Art, I found the garden row cloches that Stephen was asking about there. I put them in chat.
Oh, good.
And this entire presentation with everything in it that Art has in it is available, and I put it's in the chat too.
Hey, Alice.
Yeah.
Did you look at the price by any chance?
You know, they're unavailable right now.
Okay, figures.
Yeah, I looked, but no, none available.
Yeah, they used to be about they were about $70. They're getting kind of pricey.
Yeah.
So
There are cheaper ways to do it for sure.
oh yeah. but they look nice.
Yeah, they do. They're very attractive.
Make your own and put a handle on it.
There you go. Any more questions?
Just a comment. Something I learned from the Florida fruit growers. When it got down to freezing, they'd turn the sprinklers on.
Yep.
And hold it down to about 23, 22 degrees. Nothing would be damaged.
Yes. Yeah, they do that up here at Weyerhaeuser. If you're driving by and you're heading up 5 north and you get up around the Rochester and you turn off at, I think it's Route 12, and you go towards Lucky Eagle Casino, there's a Weyerhaeuser setup right there, and they turn the sprinklers on and it freezes over top of all your plants and it saves all your plants.
That's right.
And it works.
The problem is if it's not well drained, then you have a sloppy mess. But
Oh, I do got to say one other thing too. If people are looking for plastic for row covers or just to cover things up, it's like a 6 mil plastic. Weyerhaeuser gives it away every year when they tear their hoop houses down. And you can get this stuff, but the only catch is you have to buy the whole, or you don't buy it. They give the whole length to you and you just use it as you want. But this stuff will cover, it's like 100 feet of this stuff. And you can take it and they give it away to you because they just want to get rid of it. It's only been used once or twice, but it works great. I have a couple friends that have used it over top of their greenhouses and they love it.